Hi, welcome to a very special edition of Joe Blogs. And the reason that this is a special edition is that I'm not going to talk about Brexit. When I got up this morning, I was intending to put together a full episode talking about Rishi Sunak's new negotiated deal with the European Union, talking about the Northern Ireland border that's in the Irish Sea, what's happening with the red lane and the green lane, and all the checks on the goods that are going to Northern Ireland versus the European Union. But then I just had a moment of clarity and thought, no, stop talking about Brexit because it's so boring. In the UK, people have been talking about Brexit since 2015, when the Queen first announced that there was going to be a referendum. And at that time, it was the new thing to talk about. Everybody wanted to talk about Brexit. It was like having a new girlfriend. It was so exciting. The first 6 months, everybody wanted to debate what might happen. Would we vote in favour of staying? Would we leave? If we left, how would it work? Would we be able to negotiate an Australia-type agreement? Would we be able to become the new Norway in Europe and have our own trade deals? Oh, it was so exciting. The hours that everybody spent in the pub debating all of these things were marvellous. And as the referendum grew nearer, the nation rose to fever pitch. Everybody was so excited to see what was going to happen. But at that time, everybody thought that the UK would remain in Europe. And it was a real surprise when the vote came through that they wanted to leave. Everybody was shocked. And that caused a new wave of excitement in the pubs. Everybody wanted to talk about what was going to happen, what the new deal was going to be. And the Prime Minister at the time, a guy called David Cameron, who's many Prime Ministers ago now, he decided that he could no longer stay in his job, so he left, and then there was a new vote to see who was going to take over to be the new Prime Minister. And as a result of that vote, the UK got its second ever female Prime Minister after Margaret Thatcher. And everybody thought Theresa May was going to be the new Margaret Thatcher. But unfortunately, she turned out to be completely useless and didn't know what she was doing and was unable to get her deal voted through by the members of Parliament. So we then got into this horrible situation where nobody could vote through Brexit. So Theresa May eventually had to resign, and then a new Prime Minister came along called Boris Johnson, and he'd actually been supporting the Leave vote. So everybody thought he knows what he's doing, he'll see us through these choppy waters. But then we had another period of prolonged disasters and no deals, and nobody really knew what was going on, and ultimately Boris Johnson had to resign as well. And then he was replaced by the UK's third lady Prime Minister, an individual called Liz Truss. And everybody was hoping that Liz Truss was going to be the new Margaret Thatcher and put the UK back on track, but unfortunately she turned out to be worse than Theresa May, and after 44 days she resigned her position. And then we had another vote for another Prime Minister, and Rishi Sunak came in on his white charger and saved the day and has got a new Brexit deal agreed. But the reason that I can't talk to you about the new Brexit deal is that it's just so boring. I just can't bring myself to go through the details because nobody really cares anymore. Everybody's given up on Brexit. We've all moved on. Brexit happened in 2016. That was when the vote occurred. If you cast your mind back to 2016 and think what was happening, it was the time when Barack Obama was president of the USA, the Rio Olympics were happening in Brazil, the biggest movie of that year was Captain America Civil War. The biggest song was Love Yourself by Justin Bieber. The biggest album was Lemonade by Beyonce. There was a large number of celebrities that died in that year, including Muhammad Ali, the boxer, Carrie Fisher, who appeared as Princess Leia in all of the Star Wars movies, George Michael, David Bowie, and Prince. Now, if I went into the pub tonight and said to everybody, hey guys, guess what? Prince has died, I would be thrown out of that place immediately. And that's the same sort of concept of me walking in and saying, who wants to talk about Brexit? I would literally be stoned out of the place immediately. Nobody in their right mind wants to talk about Brexit. And the reason that we can't talk about Brexit anymore is that we've all overdone it. We just spent too much time in 2016, 17, 18 debating what might happen, getting all excited, and then nothing happened and it wasn't exciting. And everybody decided that it was time to move on. It's a little bit like substance abuse. You can do it for a short period of time, but then you have to move on and never look back. And that's exactly what the situation is with Brexit in the UK. Nobody wants to talk about Rishi Sunak's New Deal. Nobody's interested in what's happening with the Northern Ireland Protocol and the red and the green lane. Nobody cares. Everybody's moved on. And the term Brexit has now become a catch-all for blaming absolutely anything on. So if you're talking about rising prices and inflation, that'll be down to Brexit. If you're talking about the fact that the price of holidays have gone up, that'll be down to Brexit. If you're talking about labour shortages, that'll be down to Brexit. If you're talking about your football team not playing well, that's definitely down to Brexit. You're talking about COVID, that's also down to Brexit. If you're talking about your wife leaving you and nobody loving you, that is definitely down to Brexit. So Brexit is the blame for everything, so therefore nobody wants to talk about what Brexit actually is and what's happening with it. And to a certain extent, it is a shame that everybody's overdone the Brexit thing and that nobody wants to talk about it, because Brexit is a great word. And actually, I think that's why it became such a popular topic, because somebody who smashed together Britain and exit into Brexit was an absolute genius, because that just summed up the whole movement and then everybody got behind it. But Brexit also threw up a whole lot of other terminology that was also quite interesting. So there was a lot of talk about hard Brexit and soft Brexit. Nobody really knew what it meant, but it sounded great, so everybody liked to debate that in the pubs. So as I mentioned in the introduction, the purpose of today's video is really to be a bit more light-hearted and have a bit of fun with the Brexit topic, because it is genuinely quite boring. But before I go, I'll leave you with a couple of jokes. An Englishman, Irishman and a Scotsman walk into a bar, but unfortunately all three have to leave immediately because the Englishman voted to do so. And then finally, knock knock, who's there? Europe. Europe who? No, Europe who? No, Europe who? No, Europe who? So hopefully you've enjoyed today's slightly tongue-in-cheek video. If you have liked what I've said, then please let me know in the comments. I'd be interested to know whether you'd be interested in seeing more videos like this, or whether you want to go back to hardcore analysis and data and graphs and all of that usual stuff that I post. And thank you very much for watching this video all the way through to the end.